it's Anna, the Yarn Randomizer. And this is episode 21, and you'll notice I peek over at my notes and stuff because I could not possibly memorize all the stuff I need to go through at the beginning. All right, this is a knitting podcast. There might very rarely be some other stuff, but yeah, mainly knitting all the time. And then I wanted to welcome folks back who've been watching, and it looks like I have hit 500 subscribers. So if you're coming back, great, glad to see you again. And if you're just finding the spot, this little show, you're welcome here. And I hope you find something interesting or enjoyable in this. And so it's great, 500 subscribers, yay. And then you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as, so on Instagram, I am original.annasender at Instagram, and so I'll actually say it right this time, but it's always correct in the links down below. And then on Ravelry, I'm the Yarn Randomizer, just like here. And and I have a Gmail address, theyarnrandomizer@gmail.com, and there's a physical address down in the notes as well, so I can have something for a return address for when I mail things out. Okay, so that's all those preliminaries. And why randomizer is because I choose, I'm going to grab a little thing here, yarns out of my stash. For the most part, my projects are randomly picked out of my stash. And so I have my husband pull a number from a bucket of chips similar to this. And then I have to figure out what to do with the yarn. And that's kind of how I go about pursuing my hobby. And that's how I've done this for the past, it's going on 7 years. I started probably at the end of 2017, so almost 7 years now. But I've found it to be a really fun way to approach kind of picking stuff out of my stash instead of seizing up with like trying to decide out of my stash instead. So please like and subscribe and stuff. So if you're enjoying this, and let's get right down to it. So first things first, I always don't want to keep people waiting and stuff. And so I had a skein of, it's tucked away. And so you can see it on the last episode. It was some yarn from, oh my gosh, I'm having major brain freeze. The colorway was Jawbreaker. It was a fingering weight yarn from Lola Bean Yarns. And so the person who got drawn out of the comments, let's see. And that's a note from one of my sons. And so the person that was chosen out of the comments was Kristen Rossi, 6528. So if that's you, please email me at theyarnrandomizer@gmail.com and let me know where to send this off to. We'll figure out how to get it there and stuff. So I did send the previous winners off, and it actually had to go to Australia, and it's still, I've been tracking it, it's still on the way, but hopefully we'll be getting there this week. So yeah, so that's that, and we'll have more to talk about on Stash Front later. All right, so let's get down to what I'm wearing first and foremost. So this is an older piece that I made. I think I made this in might have been 2020 actually, during that summer. And so this is a cowl called the Onlet Cow. Oh, and who is this by? This was by, I've got it right here somewhere, maybe. There it is, Cat Archer. And so this is a cowl that is knitted on lace weight yarn. So this is a lace weight, this was a lace weight single fingering, lace weight single of 100% merino yarn. And let me pull this off here so I can show this. And this is madelinetosh Prairie. Now, I don't know that they make Prairie anymore, but it was a very, very fine single strand, single ply lace weight yarn in 100% merino, and I had this single skein in my stash, and the name of this color I think is Electric Rainbow. And this got pulled up as a random project, and I found this cowl that was meant to be knit with this single ply lace weight, and and it would use the entire skein, was the idea. And so I thought that was a great idea. Now, I'll sit there and say, I really love the cowl. I mean, you can see the detail of those huge cables, and they're big. It's a ribbed cowl that's cabled. And I guess the only downside would be, for one thing, it's lace weight, so it takes a little while longer to do. The other thing is, I think these were like, was it 16 by 16? They were either 12 by 12 or 16 by 16. They were enormous. These are big cables, which is why they show up so nicely on the finished cowl. And they're ribbed, so that the nice thing about that is each side looks exactly the same. But I will tell you that the cables, like particularly, were a heck of a thing to do. They were hard to do, and particularly at the edge. They were moving that number of stitches around in a lace weight yarn and stuff was a pain in the butt. And the other funny thing that happened with this cowl is that this skein of yarn starts out very strongly colored like that, but then by the end of the thing, this independently dyed yarn ended up almost looking pastel. And as a result, where it is grafted together is a real obvious shift in color. And so it's like, oh, you know, it's one of the challenges of working with a yarn like this. I suppose you could helix knit something like this, maybe to both ends together to kind of even it out. But that would have added even more complication to something that was a little bit on the challenging side already. But I love it. It was a lot of work. I don't know if I'd make the pattern again, but I really like the piece. I think this ended up super nice. Let's see if I can mess up my hair there. And so, yeah. And so that's it, Onlet. And so if you have, I think it's about, how much yardage in, it used 840 yards of this madelinetosh prairie. So if you had a lace weight of a similar amount, 100 grams of a lace weight, I think it would work for this as well. But that'll all be linked below. And so that's what I'm wearing, is that, because the weather's starting to get kind of nicer outside and everything. And so yeah, just a cowl today. And then, so that's that. So that's what I'm wearing. Now, back to my notes. So finished object. I only have one finished object for this week. And that is the, pie cloth. And I'd shown this in progress. And so I'll show a little corner of it here. See if you can see that. It is so neat. I absolutely loved knitting this pattern. This pattern is $1 on Ravelry, and it's meant, I don't know if they had any listing of weight, but I used a fingering weight yarn, a light fingering at that weight yarn to do it. Now the only problem I had, as you can see, is I lost yarn chicken. But I really am super thrilled with how this came out. And the edging is actually knit on, so you actually start knitting around the edge, consuming the stitches. And so when I saw that I was going to run short, I just cast off the rest of it, and then I blocked it. Now, the idea with this is that I'll use this for a washcloth. It almost seems too pretty for that. But it was neat, and it had a really interesting, if you can see the middle, it had a, see if I can get a good focus there. It had a type of pinhole cast on that was a light pinhole cast on. So the yarn around the middle only goes once instead of twice like it does with some. Other pinhole cast-ons might work just fine, but for this lightweight yarn, this one worked out really well. And then you do a bunch of increases out of the middle, and then you do this lace weight pattern. And part of the idea for this little shawl is a practice piece for lace, and it's a practice piece for doing a pie shawl. So I really highly recommend it. If you've got some leftover fingering weight yarn that you want to use, and that kind of stuff, this was just a fun little thing to knit. And you could probably use it, you know, you could have it as if you use doilies. Does anybody use doilies anymore? You can put it somewhere, but I really like it. And it will be going into, I think, duty in the kitchen. So it'll be interesting to see how it wears and everything. And I can always make another one. But yeah, I highly recommend it. It was a bargain for the pattern, and it was just a really fun knit. And I'll definitely be doing this one again. Now, what had happened was I ran short, and I had used, I'll let you know, I was using a size, oh, did I not mark the needle size? I used one size larger than what the pattern calls for. Let's see what they said there. Light fingering, and I don't even know if she lists a needle size there. I think I used a 2.5, and I ended up using 56 yards in this, and it didn't quite do the trick. So you definitely need more than that, but I recommend it. So that was a fun knit, and I will be doing that again when the opportunity arises and finish it. Have enough to finish it with. I thought about adding some other yarns of similar color, but I just decided, nope, I'm just going to finish it off with just this yarn and go from there. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. So that was my one finished object. And part of the reason for that is because all my other projects are kind of substantial and are taking, not ones that I can kind of finish off quickly. I'm thinking of making another one of the emotional support chickens I have planned, so I have a quicker project over the next 2 weeks and have another one done for the next podcast. But otherwise, we'll get to my works in progress. Now, first of all, I wanted to bring up the motorcycle sweater. So I don't know how long it's been since I've shown this. Have I ever shown it? I can't even remember now. But I have this. Let me bring up one of these yarns. So this is Mary Maxim pattern, and I'll stick up a picture. It's an old pattern from like 1961 and has this ridiculous intarsia motorcycle on the back and a couple of other things motorcycle related on the front. As a substitute yarn for the original yarn, since I don't think it's made anymore, I picked up a bunch of Encore Chunky, and this is mainly acrylic with 25% wool. I figured since this is going to be a sweater for my husband, and he's not a huge sweater wearer, but this would not get a whole lot of use, would be kind of a unique, kind of more something for fun than anything else. I thought I'd just go ahead and use something that was a little less expensive. And I'm trying to do it in the original colors that were called for in the pattern. And here's my great progress. So this is where I kind of ended on this thing. For one thing, I had to make this sweater bigger, a size bigger than what the pattern lists. And so I had to increase the chart size. And it has these little squares at the bottom, which I did with stranding. And then it has this motorcycle, and I'm up to the tires. So you can see the 2 tires on the motorcycle, the front and the back, sort of. And so basically I've got to work my way the rest of the way up on this thing. And so the goal in bringing it up here again is that I want to make a plan. So to get it complete, I would like to have this done for my husband this year, and the sooner the better. I'd like to get that done. And so I'm going to make a spreadsheet. So when I get that done, I'll make a plan for how much to do, work on it daily, and then kind of get a target date in mind for when I want to complete it. So I'm going to get that sweater complete. The interesting thing is, a lot of podcasters will go into, they have some huge backstock of whips and that kind of stuff. And this is really this one, and I've got a shawl here that I haven't put a whole lot of work into recently, but these would be the only really lingering whips. And my blankets are always as they come up, so they always wait in between working. So they're kind of those kind of things that don't count for whips. But yeah, so the idea is to get some of these things that have been sitting around done and off my plate, but I really don't have a huge backlog. You're seeing almost everything that I'm working on every time I do one of these episodes. So, but that's being brought back out and gonna get it done. Gonna make a plan, gonna get it done. All right, now the next one is, oh yes, the blanket. And let's get this off of here. And you might notice that I've expanded my pegboard up here, and I'll put in a link below. This is all IKEA stuff, and so these pegboards. And what happened was I saw that IKEA had different things you could hook to the pegboard, so I decided to get some of those and start using it. So for example, here, if I can point to it right, are my needle sets are in here. I have some needle stoppers right there. I have a little set of earplugs hanging here, and I'm going to figure out what to do with the rest of that. But I've still got all my hooks for projects and stuff up there too. But I really like that because it's right here at my desk. So for when I'm working and everything. So next project. Okay. Next project is my year-long Slipstravaganza blanket. And again, I've been keeping up on my plan, my spreadsheet, which is, you can see the spreadsheet linked in my project, and that'll be linked below. But I've been keeping up, and so I am a handful, was it three repeats into the bubble stitch now. And so I think you can see that. So I've got one set of bubble stitches for each color now, and they don't use the main color in the bubble stitch. And so in total there's these three, there's going to be a total of 12 rows of bubble stitch. So you'll see these three repeated 3 more times for this section of the blanket. And again, this is getting pretty substantial. But yeah, I'm really happy. I had not done bubble stitch before, and I'm kind of getting used to it, getting used to how I like to work it, and I think it's looking pretty good. And so yeah, it's really fun because the bubble stitch is nice because you have one row where you have to do this dip down stitch every so often, and then after that you've got 5 rows of stockinette to do, so it just goes quickly. And so yeah, so that's where it's at. So it's on track, and it's now just over 25% done at this point. And so it's tracking along. This bubble stitch section will come to completion sometime in June. So over the next sets of episodes and stuff, you'll just be seeing more and more bubble stitch on this blanket. So that'll be fun. But yeah, I really enjoying the project, and I really like the bite-sized amount of knitting to do every day. And again, you can see that all plotted out in my spreadsheet. Let's see, figure out where to drop this. There we go. Put it right there. So that's the Slipstravaganza blanket by Stephen West, and really absolutely wonderful pattern to work. Now, and the yarn is from Finish Knits. It's their DK weight MAINIO, Mayanio. I don't know how to say it, but it's Langkava's DK weight that they have at Finish Knits. Now, next thing is I have a sweater in progress, and it is the Ravello that I've been doing by Isabel Kramer, and I'm doing it in these crazy colors. So I have this variegated purple and kind of white and green color, and then I have this crazy fluorescent green, and then I have this purple from Lorna's Laces. So this is Mandy's making, her Silly Monsters colorway, and this is Lorna's Laces Shepherd Sock in Grapevine. And so I've actually finished the ribbing. So I finished this section. I only had maybe 3 or 4 grams of the yarn left over after I finished this. So I'm pretty happy with how I've calculated things out. I'm trying to get as much sweater out of basically 3 skeins of fingering as I can, and equally used in the project. Now, one of the things to note, see if I sit this here, this is a 3x1 rib, and she does that because it carries forward this almost like a faux seam at the sides. Let's see if I can, yeah. And so you can kind of see that faux seam coming down the side. And I have finally, one of the things I always end up delaying on is picking up the sleeve. So what is it about? you know, it's fiddly. Like it's, you know, the stuff you have to do to keep the sleeve from having holes and all this other kind of stuff. So it's a little fiddly. So I have to get over the hurdle of picking up the stitches and picking up at the underarm for the sleeve. But I've done that on one side and I'm making progress there. Not a ton, but there'll be more. I'll be faster now that I've finally picked it up. But yeah, I'm super happy with that. I'm really happy with how this is looking. And they're going to be, you see that the body has 4 stripes on it. This is going to have closer to 8 or 9 going down the sleeve. And then it'll switch over to being all of the variegated color, just down to the cuff. That's different from what the pattern originally calls for, but it's what I did in order to make the usage of the yarns between the 3 yarn colors equal. So yeah, absolutely thrilled with how this is coming out. I did try it on, and it's fitting and that kind of thing. So the one thing I'm hoping is I've knit at least 1 fingering weight sweater, and so in some ways I think this is a slightly lighter yarn, so I'm thinking it'll be interesting to see how much it smooths out when I block it, but I expect it will. All right, but yeah, that's Ravella by Isabel Kramer, and it is just a simple pattern. You could knit it solid if you wanted to, but yeah, very simple pattern, and I just like the color blocking and the stripes. I think it's turning out great. All right, now let's see. So that is that one. Okay, and next is another sweater. So I figured knitting a fingering weight sweater is a little more time consuming. I have this year's been interesting with the Yarn Randomizer. I'm picking a lot of sweater quantities of yarn are getting pulled. Usually I get more, you know, single skein things that come up and that kind of stuff, but this year has been just picking sweater quantities. And so in order to be able to make some real progress, I decided to take there was a worsted weight sweater quantity that came up, and so I decided to start with that. And so I've got this in this bag here, and this is a bag, I think Pyle, trying to remember what his first name is, but it's from this has got a comic from Strange Planet or something like that, but basically it's about knitting. And it's very cute. And I'll put a link below for this bag. And the reason I bought it was I originally saw it on, I think, Natty's podcast. She talked about it years ago, and I just thought it was so neat. I picked up one for myself, and it's always a conversation piece. When I'm at anywhere out and about with it, people, oh, let me look at the comic, and they always love it. All right. So now my worsted weight sweater, which is something that moves a little faster than the fingering weight sweater, is the Harvey Wallbanger by Thea Coleman. And you can see I'm getting most of the way done. Let's see if I can do this. Yes. And so it's getting most of the way done, and I'm just taking a bunch of leftover skeins of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in worsted weight, and the vast majority of this were leftover bits of yarn from my mother's stash. And so I think it's turning up great. I came up with a whole plan for how to use the yarn. I'm using the black for the ribbing. I'm using the different colors of purple for the main color section. I'm using different colors of green for the contrast color, and just kind of getting them in there proportionally to how much I have left of each color. And so I'm thinking before next episode, I will have this front done so you can look at the whole front piece. Now this is a sweater that's knit from the bottom up. It's got drop shoulders, and it will be seamed together. Even the sleeves will be knit flat and seamed together. So that is something I'm used to doing, because when I was knitting back in the dark ages, back in the 80s and 90s and stuff, that was the case for the majority. Now certainly I think Knitting from the Top Down is, and I'll link that book below. I have that, and those ideas were bouncing around at that time, I believe. I'll have to look at when the publish date was for that. And I have that book from that time. But yeah, most of the time patterns were bottom up and pieced. And so I'll seam this together when it's done and be happy with it. And I basically use sweaters that I already have for estimations on lengths that I want for different parts of it and stuff. But yeah, loving how that's looking. Look at those purples. It's so neat. Can you tell? I guess not only is my favorite color purple, so it must have been my mom's as well. All right. So that's Thea Coleman's Harvey Wallbanger sweater. And this pattern, actually, just one more thing to give you a close look. Let's see if I can hold this up in such a way that you can see the detail. It's a really neat, actually that's upside down, so let me hold it right side up. It is a really neat texture pattern with kind of a lace and these pearl bumps, giving a whole lot of detail and texture to the pattern. It's very nice. All right, so that's that sweater. And finally, okay, so I have a new cast on, and it's one that I have been, almost, I was saying every year, I think since 2017 or 18, I've been doing what was a year-long knit-along with Jimmy Bean's wool for a shawl. Now this year they changed it up and they're giving you all the yarn in a course of 6 months. So you're getting about twice the amount of yarn each month and the pattern to knit and everything. And I'm not sure why, but I kind of delayed on starting that. Not like I didn't like the pattern, and the yarn is really nice. The yarn is Hedgehog Fibers Oh So Fine. And hold on for a second. Oh, I'm almost out of drink. Hedgehog Fibers Oh So Fine, which is 100% merino, and it is very nice. And there's some really neat colors in here. I believe this is churro here, and I'll hold up the colors in just a minute. But yeah, and it's got some fascinating textures, like this, some slip stitches and a bunch of, I think, knit 3 or purl 3 together. And there's doing some slip stitches up here. And this is actually going to be it'll be a rectangular shawl. We're knitting 2 triangular wedges, and then you knit from the center out for the other parts of it. And so I'm kind of getting caught up. Normally I'm ahead of the game on these things, but for some reason I just delayed casting this on this year. So I'm going to attempt to get caught up before, now that we're at the halfway point of getting the yarn. So I've already got 6 mini skeins of the yarn that goes with this. And they had 2 colorway options. This is the kind of subdued set of colorways. There's a much brighter set of colors. So I'll put a link down below for those. But let's see, I think I've got, let me make sure I name these colors correctly. And I'll bring up the pattern here on the computer. Here we go, there, and I'll come down here. So, yeah, so Radiant is the other colorway option. It has these very bright colors, and this is Mellow. This is the Mellow option for it. And so I'm going to show each of these. So this is the colorful yarn you were seeing, and this one's called Churro. And again, this is all, just really quick. Yeah, it's all Hedgehog Fibers Oh So Fine, 100% merino. And it is really, feels very nice. This is the color Stone, which I've used some of already. Same with this one. This is Silence. Another kind of a solid color. And then this is Matchstick here. And then Crystal. And then the last colorway is Liebling. All right. So I'm hoping to get caught up before the next podcast. Maybe. Definitely caught up before I get the next installation of this is the goal, to be caught up before the next set of mini skeins come in and stuff. But yeah, I always enjoy it each year. There's always lots of great group discussion either on Facebook or Ravelry. There are places to discuss the pattern, and it's really interesting pattern with lots of funky little slip stitch and texture kind of things to add interest to the use of the different colorways and everything. So it's an interesting knit so far. All right, so that is all of my works in progress. Now, acquisitions. So I did have another acquisition. So this is what happens when you look around. And so I do like Hypnotic Yarn has a really great monthly yarn subscription. I'm not doing it right now, but I highly recommend it because she has great colorways called Yarnable, and she has great goodies that go along with those. Now, every once in a while, I'll check out her Hypnotic Yarn site and look at the yarns that she's got available. And so when I saw this, I could not resist it. So this is called, this is her, it's 8515 superwash merino and nylon, and this is Pot of Gold, I believe. Yes, Pot of Gold. Now I love the yellow here, and just check out that speckling. When I saw this, I thought this will make a fantastic pair of socks. I just think it will look so great. And so I couldn't resist doing an order. And so we'll talk about stash management here in a minute. But I did order that. And I ordered a few other things from the site as well. But yeah, I'll link the stuff below. But yeah, Pot of Gold. Won't that look great? I think that'll look great. Now, I picked up a few other things while I was there, and she always has a lot of interesting stuff there, because I think what happens is sometimes there are extras that she has available just to directly purchase on her site. And so this is the second time I've gotten one of these little pinch bowls that she has available. I have one here at my desk that I use for holding light bulb stitch markers and keep them handy. So I'm going to have this one at the other place that I sit in the house when I'm sitting out watching TV with my husband. So I wanted to get another one because it's just such a convenient little bowl. It's got nice depth and it's just neat looking. So I picked up another pinch bowl. I picked up some, and I'll hold this up this way. I don't have the original box they came in, but I picked up these little flags. And so you see that looks like an illustration, but each one of these is a set of Post-it flags for things. So I like the little set of kind of the woodland illustration and the little flag. So I picked those up to have those available here. And I also picked up a set of Post-its, just one more row. And so yeah, so she's always got a lot of neat stuff at her site. Great colorways that she's got and everything, and so I really recommend taking a look there. So I couldn't resist. So next is stash management. So as it turns out, I had about 813 and a half yards of yarn budget. Not only had I finished this little project, which was a whopping 50 something yards of yarn to my budget, but I also gave a skein of some yarn to a friend. And so that one was about 510 yards of yarn. And so that gave me, I think in total with some other stuff I'd completed, it was 813 yards of budget. Now this yarn is 437 yards. And so I have the rule, if you're the first time here, my rule is twice as much has to go out as comes in. So I only had budget for 813. So if I take away double this 437, which would be 874, way too many numbers, right? But bottom line is I was in the hole for about 60 yards, negative for about 60 yards of yarn. And my rule is I can't destash any remnants until I destash a whole skein of yarn first. So I went through and I picked out a skein of yarn to destash. And so here is another opportunity to get some yarn. And so the yarn I picked to destash, I thought I would pick, because I have a lot of different colors of this, it's the fiber seed. And this is her sprout worsted. Now this is a dyer out of the Cincinnati area here in Ohio, and I really like her yarns. I'll link the site below. In her site, she has things grouped by the method, kind of the method of dyeing. You know, each yarn has a description about how it's dyed. Is it half solid, half speckle, two halves of solid, you know, all speckles, or you know, I think she uses kaleidoscope for where she's just kind of randomly putting the colors together, and she lists the colors of the dyes used for the yarn. And that way you can actually look easily through her yarns to find ones that'll go together well based on that. Now this colorway is called Blue Orchid. And so it's a very navy blue here on one side, and then it's got these very bright blues and some purple speckles on the other side. Now these skeins, her fingering and her worsted skeins are larger than normal. So it's 90% merino wool, 10% nylon, and it is, if I can read this, it's 136 grams of worsted weight yarn, and so it's got 250 yards in this. And so this is what's up for somebody to claim and for me to destash to make up for my yarn purchasing. And so I think the word we'll just use orchid. So you mentioned orchid, I think that will be ORCHID, or anything close to it. I'll be able to find it one way or the other, but this is what's up for grabs. So if you're interested in this, please comment and just say the word orchid. As we've learned from a bunch of podcasts, if you say the word giveaway down in the comments, we'll have the bots and the spam bots will show up and do all kinds of awful stuff and try to scam people and that kind of stuff. So just mention, they won't notice when we talk about orchid. All right. So that's the one that's up for giveaway. And so yeah, that'll bring me into a good state as far as yarn management for this year. Now, let's see. Oh, and finally, we have the randomizer pick. Now, last time I had talked about combining, this was randomizer pick number 13 for the year, this great gray owl of hedgehog fibers. This Tosh Merino Light in great gray owl. And I showed a couple skeins and asked what people thought about which one to combine with this. And I also asked I had two pattern possibilities, but I asked other, you folks about other ideas for patterns that use two skeins of yarn. Well, I really like that. And I made a bundle on Ravelry, which I'll link below, that lists a bunch of patterns, ones that I had picked out, and also a bunch that were recommended that use two skeins of fingering yarn to make the shawl. And so the one that I really liked was Satima, and that was, did I have it up here? I think I've got it here somewhere. Yes, by Vera Valimaki, if I'm saying that right. And I really liked it. I do like brioche, and this is like garter stitch and brioche, and it's got a way of putting these colors together, and I'll put a picture over there somewhere. And I thought it would do great. And the one folks mostly recommended to put together with this was the Hedgehog Skinny Singles. Yes, Hedgehog Fiber Skinny Singles in Oracle. So those will be the two colors I'll put together in that shawl. And so that's Yarn Randomizer Pick has a plan now. Number 13 has a plan. And so that's what's going to happen with that. And I believe that's it. I'll definitely have that queued up that way. Any of these things, as far as Yarn Randomizer Picks, you'll always see in my queue on Ravelry. My queue's always accurate and reflects reality. So now, next is, I have a new pick. It's Yarn Randomizer Pick number 14 for 2024. And that is, it's this brushed alpaca silk. Now, I pick up this drops yarn I get from Wool Warehouse in the UK, actually, and I look for when they have drops yarn and other yarns on sale, but particularly drops yarn there, some of their yarns on sale there, because you don't, it's it's where I found some of the best deals for picking this up. And so when you find this on sale there, you can get some really good deals. So it's where I'll link that below. And the neat thing is they have, at least the last time we ordered, the shipping was a flat rate of shipping, like £6 to mail it here. And it gets here pretty quickly to boot. So it's a really nice resource if you want to get hold of some yarns from over in Europe or over there, some of the drops and stuff. So this is their alpaca silk. And this is in the color, I think, Morning Mist, I believe. Yes, number 14, Morning Mist. So it's this really light gray. And so, what to do with this yarn? I had bought this yarn specifically last year after I'd made 2 brio clavas for my stepson and his wife. And I like those brio clavas so much, I wanted to make one for myself. And so I had picked out this yarn, and I had picked out some drops Lima to go with it. And so the idea is I'll have this black main color with this light gray peeking out between will be the deal for the brio clava. So it should go really well with my winter coat with the black main color. Now this Lima from Drops is, I believe, 65%. See if I can read this. Where is it at on here? I know it's a mixture of alpaca and merino. It's wool and alpaca for every day, it says here. But I don't, there it is, 65% wool, 35% alpaca. And so this should be a really nice DK to use for the pattern. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I may cast this on sooner. I don't have any rules about jumping the queue, particularly when I need smaller projects sometimes. And so this would be a smaller project that I could kind of get done pretty quickly. And so yeah, so that is Yarn Randomizer Pick number 14 for the year. And that is that. So I would say if you get to this point, I'll remind you, think about if you like that yarn, please put orchid in your comment. And otherwise, I think we'll see what I get done for next time. And I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying spring. We actually did have a little snow around April, well, almost like an April Fool's Day snow. I think it was April 1st or maybe the 2nd. And so there we are, we have the forsythias blooming, have a little snow outside, but now, and we have a little bit of cold spell going on that it's going to warm back up and really return to spring here shortly. I'm really looking forward to getting outside and working on some stuff. But otherwise, I hope the weather, whether you're going into the fall in the southern hemisphere or you're heading into your spring up here, that the weather's been nice for you and you've had opportunities to show off your knits. And I also hope you're enjoying your knitting, and I'll see you next time.